to live in society. You need a certain balance between being out of phase with society and letting society penetrate you. Not in forest, cave, underwater, underground, society. You have to choose a balance. The more radical you are and the more countercultural to society, the less society gets into you in exact proportion, and vice versa. That is, the more you conform to society, the more society penetrates you. That is, it's normal to be, from the point of view of others, an extremist, a radical, a cultist. Call it whatever you want. It's absolutely normal. No in between. The price for not being a social degenerate is losing the feeling that you belong. Choose comfort or belonging. Longing. Never myself. Outsider for life. Stalker. Meaning, you're like a spy on a mission. You can never blow your cover. You're sitting there talking to a relative, and it's very difficult because it requires a great deal of cognitive self-control. You just want to be yourself. Don't. Ignore foreign agent. Slip up. Well, freeze from society. Rich. Fearless. Why? Understand. When you're a radical and you're different from society and you have no money, it's always easy to blame you, and you yourself will believe that you're an idiot. When you are rich, when you are well off, when you have power, you have an audience, you have leverage. They'll call you idiot, cultist, moron, lucky. You won't anymore. You won't. That's key. I understand that the world is based on the principle of physical strength. Whoever can kick ass is right. That's all. That's why it's absolutely incomprehensible to me how some leech can say or do anything to me, a physically strong person. But strictly on a perceptual level, obviously not a legal one. If a person hasn't gone through the process of de-indoctrination, there's absolutely nothing to talk to them about. What is freedom? What is freedom of the mind? It's the ability to free yourself and detach from everything that was imposed on you. Make your own choice, based on your own inner feelings of right and wrong. That's what freedom is. That's why I never believe, and I'm not interested in the opinions of people who live and grow with whatever was put into their heads at age 5. There's no personal opinion there. Permitted dissent. It's the same way. A person limited by what was put into their head in childhood, their entire thought process will take place within that tiny patch. There's no way out of it. And it's hard to pull anything from yourself. So you live, and you're deeply convinced that everything you have in your life, you've always felt that way. You've always thought that way. Then some kind of breakdown happens, a crack in perception. And you realize that this was never about you at all. You were practicing introjection. They explained to you that this is how you should feel. Introjection is when a child, without fully understanding, sincerely repeats an adult's emotional reaction. The absolute majority of people live on 100% introjection. They still don't get it. There's a meme on English internet. It goes, I support the current thing. I support the current thing. And such introjections can go very deep. For example, a person might think he's, well, hot shit, an altruist, does everything for their loved ones, lives for them, nothing for themselves. And then something clicks, through thinking, meditation, a correctly posed question to oneself. or a remark from outside, or even substances. They realized that, in truth, for as long as they remember, they were comfortable being the crudest egotists. Altruism? He was played. Do. Self-do. Hated it. Stuck. In essence, interjection is a cognitive sensory, worldview semi-finished product with a closed architecture. iPhones use a closed architecture, so you can't change anything at all, neither hardware nor software. Interjection, a foreign body in your head you can't use. If someone lacks mindfulness and self-awareness, they just live that way. This is a very complex mental, intellectual process indeed. And in essence, the entire struggle on the planet is between Prometheus and the Olympian gods. So, among global elites and people, there's a group. The fight is only among smart. That is, only smart people compete. Only intellectuals. All the other plebs are just. That's it. They are just here. Figuratively speaking, the Olympian gods are those who hold the position that people should not be educated. People should not be given access to technology. Let there be a rigid stratification of society. People in the Prometheus position say, no, we must live, educate, bring them along. That's the whole struggle, really. It takes place among these people. Loosely speaking, some political strategists craft films that encode ideas to even further enslave and forge a slave consciousness. And there are people who, figuratively speaking, like me, are in a battle of shield and sword. I uproot this and reconstruct it. There is no middle ground between these. That is, it's a purely hardline internal position on how things should be. There are people who are convinced that man is a brother to man, and there are people who are convinced that there are celestials, and then there is the one. You must also understand a very important thing. What it takes to be at the pinnacle of consciousness, to be free, to have a free mind. This requires, first, a complex brain, huge intellect, and a thirst for truth. And secondly, it requires ruthlessness toward oneself, because thinking is very hard, very energy-consuming, and painful. It is unpleasant, because the process of thinking shuts off the supply of endogenous drugs. It doesn't lead to any result here and now. So you sat there thinking all night and woke up squeezed like a lemon. What changed in your life? Nothing. Thinking, free thinking, is the highest act of will. It is the triumph of will. Thinking is breaking free of shackles, templates, patterns, anchors, gestalts, imposed doctrines, dogmas. The highest act of will, self-ruthlessness, drive to live and know truth. This is the highest good that a man, that a person, strives for, to be free. And the closer you get to freedom, the closer you are to this state, the more you begin to understand why the ancients, many of the ancients, when choosing between death and freedom, never thought for long. Freedom or death. Prison? Chill? No, all. How you look, how you speak, how you live, how you raise your children, what kind of woman you have. The restriction of freedom is worse than death, because death is the cessation of sensation, while slavery is a daily, second-by-second death. Therefore, my dear friends, your desire for freedom and your unwillingness to grovel before idiots imposes upon you an unbearable obligation to yourself to become strong. Because, unfortunately, you don't have the choice not to suffer from the surrounding stupidity. Smart but weak, get strong, physically free, or go mad. It's impossible to adapt, impossible to hide. Society is omnipresent. And it is this understanding that the bridges are burned. There is nowhere to retreat. It triggers the most important meta state that we need. When a person achieves a result simply because they cannot fail to achieve it, result or death, there is nothing else. And as long as a person has the illusion that they can somehow integrate into society, I'll convince my relatives now. I'll explain to my friends now. I'll upload a video to YouTube now. I'll find this argument now. While one clings to such false illusions, they won't mobilize. He isn't undergoing an internal Gherkin-Strelkovization. That is, he lives in a constant state of partial mobilization. I'm saying, look at Panasenkov, look at Andrew Tate. That is, it's important to be truly free. Money in itself is not a measure of freedom because it's a question of how you got it and who you now owe something to. Yes, no one worldwide has ever defined personal power better than me. There are 5 paths. 5 plus 1 paths of power. That's it. There is nothing else. And it is their combination that is freedom, in one form or another. When a person becomes rich and successful but has a hand up his ass like a puppet, there's no point in that. Billion, but booked 5 years. Why? The ultimate meaning of power is freedom. And speaking in Russian, Volnitsa, will. That is the ultimate meaning of power. Will. You saw a beautiful one. Have you ever imagined a world where your will is absolute? Imagine. Used to can't. Like a car? Forget it. Maybe in 20 years. Right? Now imagine if you had such power that you could take what you want right here and now. Saw a house, bought it. Saw, went, flew my plane. This is the meaning of power, will. And if you want to say something but can't, what's the point of everything else? This is the foundation. This is the base. To go out and be able to call evil evil. This is my personal life, my destiny. I choose to live this way. I choose, perhaps, to move slowly somewhere, or perhaps to be not as cool as I could be. But first and foremost, I always choose freedom. I don't move forward if the next move is accompanied by a decrease in my personal freedom. If I earn $10 million and I am completely free, and to earn the 11th million, I would now have to get in touch with someone for 15 minutes every Monday. I'll stay with my 10 million and look for another way. But this is my view. I feel it clearly. I truly know it. I urge you to know yourselves well too, as I have already given you good advice this year. In order to live happily and fully, you must first determine not what you can do, but what you will never be able to do. You will never be able to. And as I've said many times, in life, everything comes down not to a person's beliefs or their real capabilities, but to what is acceptable or unacceptable for him. That's all. If you want to control your life, and all of you present here, like me, suffer from not being in full control of your life, not to the extent that you would like. You need to start controlling what is acceptable and unacceptable for you. And that is very difficult, because there is no direct mechanism. The mechanism is only indirect.